Hello and welcome to the latest of our series of RAU 175 webinars. We are delighted to welcome this evening Anna Bowen. Anna Bowen is a double alumna of the RAU, having been here in 2014 and 2016, so she's glutton for punishment. She's now working as a farm business consultant as well as contract farming herself. She also does some writing and tutoring, and she is a 2021 Nuffield Scholar, and we are looking forward to hearing all about that in due course. And she will be joined by our wonderful head of the School of Agriculture, Food and the Environment. This is Phil Hudson. Phil has been at the RAU 6 years today on the day of recording, so congratulations, Phil, and over to you.
Hi, thanks very much, and thanks for the lovely introduction, Hannah. And Anna, I'm really looking forward to having a chat with you tonight. So should we get things going straight away? Let me ask you, you're a fellow person from Wales, just like myself, and indeed from our host Hannah as well. She's also from Wales. Tell us a little bit about where you live and why it's important to you.
Yeah, so I grew up in Wales. I grew up in Carmarthenshire, about an hour south from where I live now. So when I was at Cirencester, that's where I was living. So that's where I kind of went home in the holidays. And I now live in South Ceredigion, so kind of in between Newcastle, Emlyn and Llangrannog. There'll be people who undoubtedly have been in the holidays to Llangrannog and to Newquay. So my family's Welsh. We've grown up here. I'm a native Welsh speaker. So I always thought I'd leave. I did spend a year living in the Worcestershire, Warwickshire border after I finished my degree at Ciren. I didn't really expect to come back, but I got the opportunity to go back to actually where I was on my Cirencester placement, and took it to come home. And as far as my career, which is very much in dairy farming, it's probably one of the best places to be in the UK. And it's also really beautiful. Live near the sea. We've got vast of kind of a countryside really, and yeah, I love it. Where in Wales are you from?
So I'm from sort of north and slightly east of you, so I'm from Welshpool, which is just over the border from England. And my background is also from a dairy farming background. My dad was a dairy farmer. My brother has the farm now, so we share that in terms of our background as well. My parents both from Wales, so I thought I'd never leave either, but unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, depends which way you look at it, I did leave, and I do go back as often as good to see my mother, who is the same age as the Queen. So you mentioned there Cirencester, and you obviously studied at Cirencester twice, and we'll come on to talk a little bit about that in a second. But why did you choose Cirencester in the first place, the Royal Agricultural University? Why did you choose to come and study here? What attracted you to the place?
Yeah, so Cirencester didn't start out as my first choice. So I was applying to vet school, and I don't know what the situation is now, but back then, so that would have been 2011, you could only put down 4 vet schools on your UCAS form, and you're sort of encouraged to put a 5th one down to a sort of an animal science or an agriculture degree. So I was kind of looking for that 5th option, and found the prospectus in the school library, which is beautiful, as it always was. The marketing team always did a fantastic job on that. And I found sort of an international equine and agricultural management degree. And I really liked it because I had the opportunities to travel. It was really kind of a diverse degree in terms of content. So that was back when you still did a foreign language, which I don't think they do anymore. And then it had the kind of the equine and the agricultural mix. So I grew up riding horses. I was also sort of already working in agriculture by that point. So it really kind of, it matched my interests very much. So I put it down, and then I did get an offer from vet school from the Royal Veterinary College in London. I kind of decided by that point that actually I'd rather go to Cirencester. So that's how I came to go there. So I took a year out, and then I started in October 2011. And yeah, I absolutely loved that degree, and it really did. It lived up to everything I kind of expected from it.
Yeah. So had you visited the campus before you decided that actually you've got your 2 offers and you're going to choose Ciren, but or had you visited the campus and thought, yeah, actually this is the place I'm gonna go?
Yeah, I did visit. So that was back. So it makes me feel so old. But back then you had we did interviews. All the candidates were interviewed. So I came up for an interview, and I think I also went to an open day because I definitely visited Foss Hill because I took my horse with me to Cirencester. So I'd been to Foss Hill before I brought him up. So yeah, I think I'd been up twice, and I've got relatives who live in Gloucestershire. So I think we made a sort of trip of it and stayed with them. So yeah, I'd been around campus, and it was it was beautiful and just a really lovely place to study.
And was that the first thing that struck you about the place, the fact that we've got a beautiful campus?
Yeah, it was. It just you kind of I doubt we drove up the front drive because I don't think open days from the ones I work, that wasn't the kind of way in. But yeah, you stepped out and so this really beautiful location and sort of in the middle of the countryside. And Gloucestershire's lovely as well. It's very different countryside to West Wales, but I kind of remember seeing, I think it must have been like September when I first went there, and that kind of all that golden Cotswold stone and stuff. And it's just, yeah, so pretty. And I think at the open day, like meeting the other students and realising there were other prospective students then and seeing that they had, really similar interests to me. And that Cirencester could give that kind of, I could do kind of academic stuff I was interested in, but then the lots of like the societies and the stuff outside of lectures was also definitely what I wanted to do.
Yeah, great. So you talked about sort of your time at the university, and in fact, you're one of the few people who have a tree named after them. And you mentioned the drive there. You're one of the few students to have a tree named after you, I think, in the drive. So that in itself is an achievement. So you finished your undergraduate degree, and then you decided you want to come back and do a master's degree. So what master's degree did you choose, and what drew you to it, and why come back to the RAU?
Yeah, so I think sort of coming to the end of my third year, and I wasn't quite ready to leave kind of studying. So I looked at a few different options. I was thinking of doing a research master's. So I got a place at Warwick to do a research master's in bovine tuberculosis epidemiology. So that was kind of one of my options. And I think I looked at sort of like an ecology master's at Exeter. But the sustainable agriculture and food security is what I did at Cirencester. So one of my friends in the year above was doing it at the time, and I think he was really enjoying it. And I really liked it. It was very different to my undergrad, where the agriculture focus was very much on livestock, and we touched on crops, but didn't do very much. And apart from sort of, this was one of the modules in the third year, it was quite based on like domestic production and quite conventional. And the sustainable ag masters, and I think they've changed the content quite a bit now, so people are doing it now. It's probably not quite the same, but it was very much looking at like integrated agricultural systems and subsistence agriculture on kind of development work, and it's just really interesting. And like the conversation around sustainability has changed a bit since then, but I thought it was probably a really valuable qualification to have. So I just decided to stay and do a taught masters rather than a research masters.
Yeah.
And to do SAFs.
Yeah, and SAFs is one of our longest running programs and one of our most popular programs at the RAU. So you made a really good choice, and it's also one of our most diverse programs as well that students come to study on. So you've done your undergraduate degree, you completed your master's degree. I just want to sort of just finish off this little section about your time at Cirencester before we go on to another subject. I did happen to notice that on your website, annabowenmedia.com, that you refer to your time at the RAU, and with much fondness, I have to say. But you have a particular blog, and I had a look at this blog, and you have a particular blog, 23 Things You'll Miss about Ciren, and there's some really interesting aspects to that blog. But I want you to think about it, looking back now, 6 years later, and so much has happened in the world, but so much has happened in your life as well over that 6 year period. What do you miss? What do you still miss about Ciren?
So I'm not actually sure what's on that post, but it's probably quite embarrassing now. What do I miss about it? So I suppose it's probably quite similar to anybody who's been out of university for 6 years. Is you leave university and everybody kind of spreads out across the country. So it is like on very basic levels of miss having your closest friends, of being a walk away or even living in the same house as you. so I miss that. I also, there's always opportunities in life to learn, but I think I'm a bit of a nerd, but looking back at university, constantly having that opportunity to learn new things and meet new people, because it gets a bit diluted when you're out working. So that's something I miss. And yeah, like the social life at Cirencester as well. Like, I know the last few years have been really difficult for students because they haven't had the same experience that I was fortunate enough to have. But if I think back to all the kind of the parties and the balls and all that sort of stuff that we had, you don't really get that opportunity again. Certainly not that easy, not that close to where you are. Yeah, I guess it's a sense of community that there was at Cirencester that I do miss. It's I think it's comparing it to the experiences that my friends had at university and my partner had at university, and he did an agriculture degree as well, but at a big university. Is that the relationship you have with your tutors and with your, you don't just have friends within your course or within your year group, but there's about 1,000 students at Ciren when I was there. People who are kind of postgraduate students when you're a fresher, and first years when you're a third year. Like, there's a great community of people, and and that's something that I look back on really fondly, but I do kind of miss that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. Great. Well, look, let's move on from your Cirencester days now, shall we? And you've done so much since you left the university, but I want to focus on the fact that you're a Nuffield Scholar now, and you're looking at the ethics of dairy calf management and profitability. What made you choose that particular topic, and tell us how it's going?
Yeah, so I was very lucky. I got my Nuffield Scholarship in 2020, so it's 2 years ago almost. But also, I guess, quite unfortunate that I had it in the middle of COVID. So we had a sort of Zoom interview and then didn't meet my fellow scholars for quite a while. So this whole scholarship was sort of delayed by I started doing some travel in the UK last summer, so about a year ago. I think about a year ago exactly to this month. And then I've managed to go out to Denmark in November and to Canada last month. So it's still fairly early in the scholarship. But what made me choose that topic, I think it's something, so I work in the dairy industry. So the ethics of dairy calf management is something that is really important. It's something that the industry is working quite hard on improving. But I think there's still scope to do better. And as we get strategies in place, like the GB Dairy Bull Calf strategy, you know what you need to do, but finding a way to do it profitably is quite difficult. I'm also looking at cow-calf contact, so how you can keep calves on their mothers, and the feasibility of whether that's feasible selling milk on a standard milk contract, or whether or not you need to be adding value, and also how that works practically. So how do you actually manage that in terms of infrastructure with cattle? So yeah, that's how I kind of came to the topic, I guess. And also, I looked through the Nuffields of archives and realised that nobody in the UK had actually covered that topic before, which is really surprising, because I thought that somebody would do, because it's such a, it's something that people have been talking about for a long time, but nobody in the UK had. There is an Australian scholar, Sarah Bolton, who did do actually a very similar topic to mine, and she and I speak quite often about it. And I guess I'm the next stage along, really, from where she was in terms of the context of when she was doing her report.
So yeah, you've had despite the delays brought on by COVID, you have had an opportunity to do a bit of travelling. And while you've been doing that travelling, obviously you've had the opportunity to experience different types of agriculture. Is there any particular, well, let's broaden this a little bit. Is there any particular agriculture in any particular country that really is on your favourite list so far? Of course, there are many other countries to visit, but where are we with that?
My favourite list. So probably in Denmark, I went to a research centre, but I also went to a commercial farm that runs a foster calf system. So they're an organic farm, and they sell milk to not to Arla. So most of the milk in Denmark gets sold to Arla, as you can probably imagine, but it's one of the smaller organic brands. And they actually have a small brand of milk that is bought from farms which should practice cow-calf contact systems. so that the milk from this farm was going into that brand. And they were running a foster calf system. They also had robots, but they had the cows had access to pasture. And it was really interesting to see what their sort of like their motivations for pursuing that system. They tried a dam reared systems where the calves actually stayed on their mothers, but they found it wasn't compatible with the robots, basically because the calves don't empty all 4 quarters equally. So the robots were just getting really confused about why the cows had sort of uneven milk fill in their quarters and wouldn't cup on. So they then moved to a foster calf system. So their older cows will rear sort of calves, multiple calves, kind of at the end of our lives. But she was saying that what she found is that whole system sort of gave those cows that were kind of old, and some of them were like, it's a very anthropomorphic thing to say, but were sort of sad. When they were given these calves to rear, they had like a second lease of life because they had like they were in a routine, and that routine was changed. Not their own calves, they were rearing calves for other cows, but the impact on the cows was quite significant. So that was a really great place to, that was a really brilliant farm to visit and kind of modelled how that system can work.
And obviously, other than Wales, is Denmark your favourite country so far? Have you got others?
I did really enjoy Denmark. I was there in November. It was really nice weather. I spent a morning in Copenhagen, which is a lovely city. But I was in Canada last month, and I really enjoyed Canada. I wasn't really sure what to make of it. I'd been to Kentucky on the trip with Cirencester with the equine degree, but that was the only time I've been in North America. And I loved Canada. It's really like it's very flat prairie land where I was, although I did go up to the Rockies for a day. But sort of it's very cliche to say it, but really kind of polite people, very easy to drive, and great agricultural system, like really diverse in terms of what they've got going on in Alberta. So lots of different systems. And I saw some beef feedlots out there. So that was, really eye-opening, because that's obviously not something that we have in the UK, and on a scale beyond anything I've seen before.
Yeah. So you've really had an opportunity to expand your horizons since leaving the RAU with your degree and your master's degree as well. That's excellent. So let's just move it on a little bit now. And well, I suppose while we're on the subject of farming, let me just throw this one in. So if farming hadn't been your calling, let's call it that. If farming hadn't been your calling, what would you have liked to have have a go at?
Okay, so I suppose if you rewound back to that point where I chose Cirencester, if I hadn't gone to Cirencester, I would have gone to RBC and I would have become a vet. Okay. So probably I think I was looking at really as either being a sort of mixed farm and equine vet, or as joining the army. I did officer training corps at Cirencester, and I think being a regular officer definitely wouldn't have been for me, but maybe being an army vet would have been different. Yeah. If I'd done something else beyond that, I might have pursued journalism as a career. So I do some freelance work now, but I've never worked in a staff position. I didn't go to London and do internships and stuff after graduating. So maybe I would have gone down that route. Maybe.
But who knows? And there's still time, of course. There's still time. I suppose we couldn't not have this conversation today without just me asking a question about the industry as a whole. So while we've got you here, sort of got this question really. So what do you think are the big challenges for the British agricultural industry? I know it's a massive question, isn't it? But let's talk just post-Brexit then. So what do you think are the big challenges for the British agriculture industry? And more to the point, where do you think the RAU fits into that in terms of the future?
Okay, so I think I'm a dairy specialist, so I won't pretend to know about crops or anything like that. I worked in fresh produce for a bit after I graduated, and I worked in beef and sheep genetics. And obviously, there's a lot of beef and sheep farming around here. So I think the climate is obviously a big challenge. It's a big challenge for all industries. Agriculture is in a really good position where, in terms of achieving net zero, you can do that without having to offset it by buying carbon credits elsewhere. So I think there's lots of opportunities there for British agriculture to do well. and to to lead by example there. In terms of like the broad agriculture industry, I think the labour is a challenge. I mean, labour is a challenge again for other industries, but it's been a challenge in agriculture for a while. And it's certainly something that I come across when visiting farmers, that people are struggling to recruit, and maybe some of them are struggling to retain staff as well. And I think that ties into something that Cirencester can do, and something that the industry can do is the agriculture industry does lack diversity. And I think by increasing diversity, like, you shouldn't increase diversity because it will solve a labour issue. But I think that a consequence of increasing diversity will be to help that labour issue, because you're suddenly opening up, you're opening up to bring in lots of people into the industry, and making it, so for part of, to do that, to get more people into the industry, you need to make it an attractive place to work. It's a great industry to work in, I think. There's lots of opportunities, and there's opportunities for everybody, like, no matter what your skill base is or your qualifications are, there are opportunities for everybody in agriculture. So whether you want to actually be getting your hands dirty on a farm, or you want to be in academia, or you want to work on sustainability, or or engineering, or whatever it is, it's probably a role for you. So I think that's probably one of the parts where RAU and anyone that's offering education has got, is to really showcase those opportunities, and to draw lots of people into the industry. And that, Cirencester has got a finite number of students you can take, like any agricultural university does. But you can, like, I know when I was at Ciren, I was a student ambassador, and we did sort of outreach work and widening participation work. And some of those people aren't going to go to university, or they'd go to, and they might go to Reading or even Harper Adams. They might not choose to come to Ciren. But if places like Ciren are there to show what the opportunities are within agriculture, then that can only be a good thing.
And that neatly brings me to my last question. So we've come full circle. So as well as alumni, there are going to be some existing students, potential new students for the RAU listening to this webinar. Now, looking back, with the benefit of hindsight and your experience that you've had since leaving the RAU, what advice would you give to new and prospective students coming into the university? What would you say to them to do to make the very best out of their experience at the RAU?
I think it would be to say yes to every opportunity. I was really lucky at Cirencester, and I know that parts of that luck comes down to privileges that I have. To have to been offered lots of opportunities and to have taken them. I was kept very busy when I was at Ciren doing lots of different things. And I think in terms of getting the most out of it, like wherever you go to university, you'll have opportunities that you won't necessarily have the rest of your life, just because they're there to be taken. So whether it's to do a placement, whether it's to do work experience, or to meet somebody, or to go to an event, like sports and societies, if you want to try something, I think university is a great place to try it. And it also, like, I know when I was at Ciren, if you wanted to set up a club or society, there's usually support to do that. There's lots of stuff that's subsidised when you are a student. And there's usually people who are prepared to help you as well. So it's just about not being afraid to ask questions, but also being taking opportunities that come, and also looking for those opportunities as well. It's a great, and because Ciren's quite small as well, like, if you're not going to university, I probably wouldn't have been the most sort of confident or outgoing person, but because it's small and there's I think 30 students in my year group, you don't it's a lot easier to ask questions, or to get to know your lecturers and stuff as well.
Well, that's great. Thank you. Well, it's been really a great pleasure to speak to you today, and I've really enjoyed getting to know more about you, but also what's happened to you since you left the RAU. Thank you very much for your time today, and I think I want to join with everybody who's watching this to wish you all the best for your future, and for the Langford Scholarship that you're continuing to undertake. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.